Hi, and welcome to Freshwaves. I'm your host, Bren Masson. Today we're talking with Laurie Benson about Christmas traditions. And I know a lot of you think that the Christmas tradition started with the birth of a little boy years and years and years ago, well, 2023 years ago. But the traditions around the solstice are older than that by thousands of years, as a matter of fact. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Hello, Laurie, and welcome to Fresh Waves. It's so nice to have you back on the show.
Hi, Brenda. Wonderful to talk to you again.
Well, we spoke at Halloween. We were talking about, with your friend Allison, we did a show about Halloween and what Halloween is all about. And now we're moving on to the solstice and winter holiday festive season celebrations.
Mm-hmm.
And
well, I love that you started off with saying, like, we think the origins of Christmas is with, birth of Christ, exactly, 2023 years ago. But the first 3 centuries, there was no birthday for the Christian church. Nobody knew when Jesus was born. And there were all kinds of arguments about what date they should choose. So I have a couple notes here and said some wanted the date of the Korean, when the Divine Virgin gave birth to the new Aeon in Alexandria, which was January 6th, or the night of the Epiphany, which is still the official date in Greek Orthodox.
Yes.
So took that date.
Mm-hmm.
The Romans wanted the Mithraic winter solstice celebration, or the birthday of the unconquered sun, so when the sun comes back after its fading sad time. And it's been blended with the Greek sun festival of Helia. So Helios is the Greek for sun. And so we had all kinds of gods being honored on December 25th. So there was Dionysus, Osiris, Baal. There are all kinds of versions of gods that were reborn as sun gods, because that's when the sun is reborn, and that goes back centuries. So they decided they're going to go with the 25th because people were used to calling it God's birthday.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Wow. Because I guess they really didn't know. There's a lot of scientific debate over the fact that Jesus was given lambs as gifts, and they wouldn't have been born until March.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And even when they've looked back with the Eastern Star, and they've tried to put a date on that, because there was a supernova at that time that they've been able to trace back. I don't know how, but it's all coming up in the spring, and that's when they were going in for census for taxes too, and you wouldn't be doing that in the winter either. So so it's just interesting that we have this date, and it's everyone's date.
Yes, it is.
So I think it's wonderful that people say happy holidays, and I say Merry Christmas. I mean, really it is for many, many people, but it's also so many other holidays all rolled into one. And I think we were talking a little bit before about the really, 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 when you go back thousands of years and you think of people living in the forests, in caves, and you're watching that sun get lower and lower, the nights get darker and darker, and you got to do some kind of ritual to bring it back, right? Because what if I don't? What if it never comes back?
Can you imagine how frightening it would be to think that the sun might never come back?
I know.
Ooh.
It gets darker and darker and darker.
Mm-hmm. I know it makes my heart heavy every year. I know so many people who love the fall. I hate the fall. It's my least favorite season. And I mean, for the two good days out of 3 months that everyone goes, oh, isn't this glorious? It's 15 degrees and sunny. I mean, it only happens twice. But the days get so dark. And even when the sun is up in the sky, it just doesn't have warmth. It lacks that feeling that you get in the spring and the summer when it's warm and cuddly to be in the sun. And I find it very sad. So I can't imagine that someone who is depending so heavily on the sun coming back or being in the sky and the ground warming, they must have been just terrified every year. Especially, in the north. And that's where you see some of the most amazing
amazing ritual work of the old Norse, and the Yule tradition is ancient. And then we don't know much about the Druids, but there is word that they did things as well to help bring the sun back. And
Okay, so let's talk about Yule then. Yule is, like you said, very, very old. And even the Christmas carol people consider it a Christmas carol, Deck the Halls.
Yeah, holly.
It's about holly, it's about Yule, it's about all things that happened long before the birth of Jesus.
Mm-hmm. And yes, you had to celebrate as soon as you saw that glimmer that the sun is going to be coming back. Mm-hmm. Hooray, hooray, hooray. Now we know spring's on its way. We can eat the stuff that was in storage because it might go off, but we were really kind of holding back. And let's, feast and make merry. And we had the mistletoe and holly. Mistletoe was sacred to the Druids. It's a highly toxic plant, so it was used in tiny doses for medicine and, ritually harvested, all this kind of stuff. And, holly bearing the red and the green, so it's evergreen, but it has the symbolism of blood. And then fir trees, the arbor vitae, they're the tree of life, all the different fir trees that grow in the north and make it through the winter.
And they're green, and they feel alive, don't they?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the Yule logs.
Yes, let's talk about Yule logs.
Yeah, they'd have a very special log that was chosen and decorated, and then they would light it from the fire that was already on the hearth, and it would have to burn for a certain amount of time as well, to bless the household and the hearth, and of course giving gifts,
right?
Lights in so many traditions because you want to. We'd only have candlelight then, and even like Diwali is the festival of lights that happens in the fall as well. So making sure the lights are continuing.
Almost all of the festivals at this time of the year involve lights. Hanukkah, all of them have lights in them. Now, the Yule log, from what I understand, was made of oak because it's hardwood, and if it's unsplit, it will burn for the 8 days before Christmas, or the whole Advent, I think it was almost.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a thing about just keeping that very, very dense log lit and going.
Mm-hmm. And then they would save a piece of that log to start the log of the following year. And it was kept in a box and, guarded with reverence over the whole growing season, knowing that perhaps the sun would dip again. And every year it did, and still does.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, that's the whole cycle of things, isn't it? Mm-hmm. So it seems like people were trying to bring the green in and save it somehow, save the season.
Yes, for sure. And they've now found, here's something I've been studying incenses and smudges and the various things we burn inside, and we've always said it's to purify the air, or if you've ever done a sweat lodge, you'll have cedar in the sweat lodge. And they've actually done studies now where they take the parts per million of bacteria, viruses in the air before this is done. And it's like, I'm just pulling numbers because I'm not a mathematician. So say it's 3,000. And then they'll burn, and the sacred incense is like frankincense and myrrh, and the white sage and cedar, lavender too, which was used in Northern Europe. And then they would measure the born molecules of virus and bacteria in the air afterwards, and you were down to like 0.05.
Wow.
So like, when you think, sure, you're burning all this stuff inside because people are inside. It's the dead of winter. When I think about the plague and people were still going to church, but they're purifying the air with frankincense and myrrh. And sweat lodges have their cedar where everyone's crowded together. And, I love burning incense. And I like making my own with spruce gum and pine needles and cedar and things like that. So it just gives a balsam. Yeah, burn some balsam. So just that lovely bringing in and purifying the air. Mm-hmm. They also have psychotropic qualities. Certain of these burning substances will actually elevate your mood, make you more expansive, make you more accepting, a little mellower. Cedar is well known for that. It has thulione, which is the same thing that we find in absinthe from wormwood. Did you know that?
No, I did not know that. I do
Not
now.
Many people know that. People drink cedar tea for a reason.
Yes, for sure. And it's involved in rituals all the time.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I actually talked to a logger from out west, and I said, is it true that you guys drink a lot of cedar tea because, it keeps you going and it's very elevating and mood lifting? And there is a little poem that goes, a quart of arbor vitae will keep him strong and mighty.
Well, there you
said,
go.
They'll be climbing the trees. They're not only getting high on the trees, but they're getting high up the trees,
Yeah. Well, I know that now you can actually buy essential oils, and of course, be careful which ones you buy because some of them are pretty toxic, but they do have essential oil sprays that you can buy to spray on your artificial tree to make it smell like a real tree so that you get some of that, exactly what you were saying, revitalizing, warm, cozy feeling that you get from the actual phytoncides, they call it, of the real tree in your house with a fake tree.
Yeah, that's really neat. It's like those little cutout Christmas trees you hang in your car.
Oh, yes,
probably a lot less toxic.
So I've heard that there's some, instead of reindeer, there's kind of some Christmas goats up there in the old good north of the Europeans, like the Norse. They had goats or something?
Yeah, they got your goat bringing presents.
Really?
Well, you can see in the Christmas shops little straw goats,
mm-hmm.
and you can buy ornaments or hang them on your tree. And so there's the Yule goat, not Christmas goat, it's Yule goat, and I don't know if he delivered the presents or if you gave presents to the goat. But goats are great animals.
Mm-hmm. But wasn't he Odin's goats or something like that?
Oh yeah.
And Odin had these goats, and he was the one who delivered the presents, and the goats were just kind of like reindeer, only not.
Well, didn't one of them have, didn't they have 8 legs?
Wow.
Oh, really? I really need an expert here.
Yeah, we need to brush up on our mythology because
we really do. I don't want to say the wrong thing.
Well, some of those Odin things, they're so old and so ancient.
Mm-hmm. And so complicated.
They are, but maybe they're not. I mean, if everything is revolving around the solstice, and it's all about bringing in the light into our homes, the greenery into our homes, and that feeling of just peace, of knowing that there will be another season and another harvest.
Right.
Then, I mean, it is an international holiday then, isn't it?
Yes. Yes. And, I love that I don't offend anybody by calling it solstice, because solstice is a scientific term. It's when the sun stands still, and then, so solstice,
mm-hmm.
sun standing, and then starts to get longer in the days. So that doesn't offend anybody.
No.
Because it's the reality of what's happening in the world. And, of course, on the southern hemisphere, you've got the summer solstice happening at the same time.
That's true.
So, yeah.
But I guess I was thinking about that this morning, and I thought, even in the southern hemisphere, the Christmas traditions would have been brought over by the people who were settling there, the early settlers.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean that the people living there already did not have some celebrations for the summer solstice going on before they even got there.
Well, I see a fair few celebrations for summer solstice here, too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, it's kind of our May 2-4 weekend.
Yes, that's
true. In preparation for the summer solstice, which would be around June the 21st. But you certainly see the end of the school year, and people are cottaging and we're really celebrating that too. It's they called it the Wheel of the Year, which is marked by solstices, equinoxes, and then the cross-quarter days, which are in between. So our last one would have been Halloween, and then the next one will be Imbolc, and then there will be the spring equinox, and then Beltane, and so it goes.
Now, what's Beltane again?
Well, Beltane is May Day, and that's a huge mid-spring celebration for Northern European that's been carried on in a lot of, the smaller towns still will bring May baskets and put them on people's porches, all the new spring flowers. Yeah, and there were maypole, of course, dancing the maypole. Big fertility traditions happen in May, of course, because that's where people's thoughts are going.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, of course, the Christmas tree.
The Christmas tree.
Let's talk a bit about the Christmas tree, bringing it in from the outdoors, again, symbolizing the greenery in your house.
And that was a German tradition originally, yeah. Mm-hmm. Queen Victoria brought that to England. But they before that, I read that people would celebrate in pine groves. Yeah, there was pagan worship of the goddess as mother of the divine child, so the godmother and the great mother, and the Roman priests called tree bearers who would cut and decorate a sacred pine to honor her. So they had pine groves where the great mother was worshipped. This is what I get from some of my research. Mm-hmm. I've never seen that happen. It probably has been discontinued long ago. But pine trees definitely do grow in the Mediterranean. They have their own pine trees, and they have also their cedars as well. Yeah.
Yeah, so they're all over the world. I just found this interesting little thing that says, in Nordic folklore, they have a kind of Christmas elf, and he's called the Nisse, the Nisse. And it's a mythological creature associated with the winter solstice and Christmas season, best described as looking like your typical garden gnome, short and equipped with a red pointy hat. Now, isn't that something?
Yeah.
And that predates Father Christmas for sure. That's way older than Father Christmas.
Oh, yeah, gnomes are very interesting little creatures.
Yeah.
I have a lot of gnomes in my garden. I really like them.
I do too. I think they bring good luck and they always make you smile. I mean, I've never seen a gnome that makes you frown, so it can't be anything but a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they do say that Santa, the whole premise of Santa, was heavily influenced by Odin.
They say that, and I also have another story.
Okay.
Can I talk about the mushroom shamans?
Yes, for sure. Please do.
Okay. So I heard this story when I was on a walk with the Mycological Society of Toronto. Mm-hmm. And someone started talking about the fly agaric mushrooms, which are the ones you see, the Alice in Wonderland mushrooms, the Christmas mushroom, we call them often. You get them, Scandinavia has lots of those ornaments of little red with white dots mushrooms. And they said, well, the fly agaric, of course, is a very highly toxic but hallucinogenic mushroom. And it's very common up in Siberia and Lapland. And how they found out they could tame their reindeer was by feeding them little bits of these mushrooms. The reindeer would follow them. They loved these mushrooms. And it seemed to give them a sort of euphoria. And they would leap around. And they then tried the mushrooms themselves. They had to be very careful because they could be fatal. Mm-hmm. But then they noticed the reindeer were drinking their urine out of the snow and having nice effects from that. So they started drinking the reindeer urine and found out that detoxified the heavy-duty toxins in the Christmas mushroom. So, yeah. So
do the Norse use the mushroom as a little Christmas ornament? Like just
yes, oh yes,
ceramic ones? Isn't that neat?
Mm-hmm. And you'll see them on jewelry and everything. And I just read this morning, early Laplanders and Siberians probably took their chances with the fungus to while away the long, dark, dreary nights. This practice no longer occurs as the happiness mushroom has been replaced by television, which in most cases provides a less toxic form of entertainment. In most cases.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, we have to take our first little break on the show here. And when we come back, we'll continue our discussion about Christmas traditions and holiday traditions around the solstice and a bit more about the solstice itself and gift giving. You're listening to Fresh Waves. I'm your host, Bren Masson, and today we're talking with Laurie Benson. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Hi, we're back on Fresh Waves. I'm your host, Bren Masson. Today we're talking with Laurie Benson. If you'd like to hear this show again or other Fresh Waves podcasts and broadcasts, you can go to our YouTube channel, Fresh Waves Radio, and you will find all of the Fresh Waves shows there. Today, we're talking about Christmas traditions, holiday traditions, and the solstice, and how some of these traditions that we consider to be 2,000 years old are in fact maybe even 10,000 years old and predate all religions, and how all of the religions pull little bits and pieces of what we would term in the old days the pagan rituals and the pagan celebrations into what we continue to celebrate to this day around the solstice.
Yeah, so we mentioned Yule logs, gifts, lights, mistletoe, holly, carols, feasts, processions.
Mushrooms.
Mushrooms. They all predate Christianity and go way, way, way back. And we were just talking about the Amanita muscaria, or also known as Christmas mushroom, which is the red one with the white dots on it. Don't try this at home.
No, do not.
They say what happened was the shamans in Lapland and Siberia had the technique of detoxifying these mushrooms. They would pass it through their system. I guess they would start off as they were in training to take a little bit at a time and build it up so that then they could collect their urine and people could partake of a purified ritual trip, which was known as it would make people happy. What can I say? When it's dark and dark and dark and cold and gloomy, and they had nothing else to do before television. All right, so just a little recap there. And I kind of liked the fact that the shaman would dress to honor the mushroom. So they would wear red and white outfits, long cloaks, trimmed in white. They would also put a stick up the smoke hole of their hut through which their spirits could supposedly come in and out, and then they would carry samples of the agaric mushroom in a leather sack and put it down other people's smoke holes for a little present.
That's nice.
Now, we don't know if this is all, I mean, these are legends that have come down, and nobody's really, as far as I know, found definitive research. But storytelling is storytelling, and it always has a grain of truth. Right? Mm-hmm. So here we are. We have reindeer that are leaping and flying. We have a cheerful man dressed in red and white fur with a leather sack of presents going down your smoke hole, hallucinating reindeer.
Yeah,
and a jolly Santa with a flying entourage. So I really don't think that Santa is as recent as the Coca-Cola ads.
No, absolutely not.
And they do have little carved wooden figures of shaman dressed in their red outfits with their long cloaks. And they've been known more recently as Father Christmas. Sometimes they're called Saint Nicholas. You know, the names change, but the archetypal figure is still there. The father figure who's going to make it all right, you know?
Mm-hmm. There is another thing about mummers Isn't there at Christmas time, or is the mummers at a different time of the year? I thought it was around the Christmas time and Boxing Day, maybe.
It's Boxing Day. You have the Wren boys in Ireland.
Ah, yes.
Yeah. And that's based on, the excuse to go out wrenning with the Wren boys is to bury the wren. Because the wren was a little cheater bird, and when they were having the contest to see which bird could fly the highest, he hid on the eagle's back. And when the eagle reached the top most, and he was the highest of the birds, the wren jumped out and flew a little higher.
Uh-oh. Saucy little thing.
So somehow, and this is a little macabre, but some things are around traditions, they need to bury the wren. The wren has been sacrificed. The wren has been killed. It got caught in a bush. I think it was its punishment for cheating. So they have this little wren on a stick that's not real, or in a bag on a stick, and carried around from door to door in the community, and they will sing a song about the wren, the king of all birds. On Stephen's Day was caught in the furs. Though he is little, his power is great, so come on, landlady, and give us a treat. And then you get a treat. So, and you're dressed up in mummer costumes of, usually it would be cork, black on the face, and whatever straw wigs you could put together, and motley patchwork clothing and things like that, and just have a jolly good time going around singing. And then people would be invited in, and there would be obviously a fiddler, and there would be other people playing instruments and dancing and telling stories and things like that, and would go and have celebrate. And it would be Boxing Day, yes.
Isn't that something?
Also known as St. Stephen's Day.
Right.
So we're getting all these ancient traditions mixed with new names again.
Right. Yeah. But the celebrations continue just the same. I've heard people say now that we have such a diverse population in Ontario, in Canada in general, that, people who in their own home countries might not have had a Christmas tree are having the tree. And when you look back and think that it has more than just a religious meaning, that it just was a symbol of rebirth, of bringing the greenery into the house. I mean, they used to decorate it even with, in the very old days, they would put the live candles on, which was just crazy in my view. And I'm sure that the Stouffville firefighters would tell you, don't do that. Yeah, it's a frightening thing. It's better to have the electrical lights. But they used to put food, clothing, little statues, and they put tributes to all the different gods that they had before everybody decided there was only one. And, they would take the gifts off the tree for the 12 days of Christmas. And they also thought during the winter during the year, that the trees had spirits in them. And that when you had the winter time, you wanted to do things that would coax these spirits that seemed to disappear in the winter, coax them into your house so that they could rest out the winter in your house and bring you good luck and good fortune and a good harvest for the following year. Mm-hmm. And you would do that by having little offerings in your house, like little treats. And we always have tons of treats at Christmas, don't we?
Yes.
Shortbread cookies and all these different goodies. I mean, even the Yule log, for a lot of people, they don't even realize the tradition of the Yule log is actually being a real piece of oak burning in a fireplace. They think that it's chocolate with white icing rolled into a roll and decorated on top and available for you at one of the big grocery stores.
No, but it's a good substitute sometimes.
It certainly is.
Not everyone has a fireplace.
And they were, there's two meats that are predominant at Christmas anyway. I mean, there's other celebrations, as we said, at this time of the year, and we're not excluding them. We're just talking specifically right now about Christmas. And it's the turkey and the ham. And apparently, when there was animal sacrifice, back way before Christianity, the animals most likely killed would be a pig in sacrifice, or a chicken, or, a wild chicken, or a goose. And then they would eat that animal sacrifice. here, gods, we killed this for you, but now we're going to have a piece of it so that we all are closer to God and closer to the realm of the divine so that we can last out this winter.
Yes, for sure. And also, do you know the tradition of the ancestor plate?
No.
Very often when you hold a feast, like family gathering, you'll have a plate on the table or on the buffet that you put a full meal on for the ancestors. And then that is put out outside for the ancestors. The animals probably eat it, but it's just a lovely tradition to be sharing with your ancestors at one of these celebrations.
Huh.
So feasting.
Yes.
For sure.
And I also heard a story, I think Allison's told us about it, where in the old days, when they realized that the sun was coming back, then the people who were hoarding all of their food substances would come together in the town, and it was almost like stone soup. Everybody would contribute something, and they'd have a big feast.
I love the story of stone soup.
Yeah, and it was that same premise that everybody would contribute and therefore create this big feast where you invited all your family and your friends because now you felt like you could share because you did know that eventually things would warm up, that spring would come, and there would be another growing season. That's pretty cool. Mm-hmm. I found an interesting thing, too, in the Norse tradition about the Christmas wreath.
Yes.
You know that the wreath is in a circle.
Yes.
So they would make wreaths back in those days that would symbolize the circle of the sun, right? So that this circle of life was about to be renewed again because the sun was coming back. So it went down around the circle and came back. And then they would light it on fire and roll it down a hill at solstice.
Oh, yeah.
Can you imagine watching in a town as all these wreaths on fire went rolling down hills? It would be spectacular. I hope it didn't catch the hillsides on fire.
Yeah.
Imagine? Oh my. Isn't Beltane like that with all the huge fires that burn?
Well, they're huge bonfires, yes.
Yes,
and
massive ones.
You'd have two bonfires and you'd drive your cattle between them so that they're purified by the smoke from being in the barn all winter.
And we always associate Christmas with snow and stuff, and I find it very funny that in places that are warm like California, they blow fake snow into their department store windows, where other places just embrace the fact that they don't have snow. And they do things differently. I know that in the Caribbean, in many of the Caribbean countries, they eat their big meal on Christmas Eve. And then on Christmas Day, they take the leftovers down to the beach and have big family parties at the beach, or they'll roast a pig at the beach on Christmas Day, and everybody's out in the sun and playing in the water and having a big family picnic at the beach.
And lots of poinsettias blooming in Mexico.
Uh-huh.
So we've taken their traditions.
Like I said, then you can have the traditions all over the world. And as the world keeps diversifying and people keep moving and there's traditions, we're learning from each other's traditions, I think.
Yes, and hopefully becoming more accepting of each other's traditions. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's why I don't mind saying happy solstice or happy holidays, because it is all that. And I'm not being anti anyone's particular tradition. So that's, yeah. But I wanted to say about all of this celebration and this craziness that went on is actually Christmas was kind of put down and banned by the Christian church. So you think now it's become such a tradition, but the celebrations remain so obviously pagan that the churchmen, I have a quote here, they renounced their carnal pomp and jollity. And one of them said, dancing, masks, mummers, stage plays, and other disorders were derived from Roman Saturnalian and Bacchanalian festivals, which should cause all pious Christians sternly to abominate them.
Hmm.
So I don't want to invite him to my Yule festival. And then the Puritans in 17th century Massachusetts, they tried to ban Christmas totally. But
That's
they
weird.
couldn't. They couldn't ban Christmas.
No.
No.
I think even the story of the Grinch really exemplifies that, doesn't it?
Yeah, true.
They couldn't stop Christmas from coming.
No, that's true. At all.
Yeah, and the Who's down in Whoville all held hands and sang Wahoo Dory.
That is one of my absolute favorite Christmas stories.
It's one of my favorites too, but I prefer the Boris Karloff
absolutely.
old traditional cartoon. I know that a lot of the young people now like
drawings.
the movie, but I like the cartoon with the drawings. I think that was, to me, that's the best. But that's what I grew up with.
Yeah, me too. And nobody does it better than Boris Karloff.
No, not at all.
No.
Well, it seems like we've talked about a lot of things, from the Yule log to the Christmas tree. Father Christmas, we've kind of left him out. I know that he started in Scandinavia, didn't he?
Yeah, I said he kind of is Northern European. I'm thinking he comes from an ancient tradition as well, because where does he fit in the Christmas mythology?
Yeah, a lot of people think he started with St. Nicholas and was born around the year 280. And in Patara, which is the modern day Turkey.
Oh, that's right.
Isn't that interesting? And he was a monk.
Mm-hmm. But that was even before Christmas had been claimed as a Christian celebration.
Right, because you said it was 300 years after, right? 3 centuries after.
Yeah. So unless he got right in there as a young guy. He was born in 280.
Yeah, he was born in 280, so he's been around for a while. And he was, St. Nicholas was the patron saint of sailors, merchants, archers, children, brewers, pawnbrokers, unmarried people, and students in various cities and countries around Europe celebrated him.
All the good people who really needed a saint to vouch for them, right?
Yeah. Isn't that funny? And he has different faces throughout the years, but he was never, ever this fat, jolly, elf-like thing.
No, he was tall and slim with a big tall crown from the pictures I've seen.
Mm-hmm.
But
the fat and jolly with the beard and the red and white hat seems to be more from the gnomes that we talked about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
That was more of the influence, because the Saint Nicholas had the pointed hat, he had the scepter in his hand. He did have a long white beard, but no red and no white, except for his beard was white. That's only because he was old.
Yeah. I think, and when you think of the night before Christmas story, and they do refer to Santa as a right jolly old elf.
Mm-hmm, absolutely, they do.
I laughed when I saw him in spite of myself. Yeah. So, he has the magic ability to, enter houses that are locked, come down chimneys without being burned.
Yes, there's magic in that, isn't there?
He's pretty magical. So, not too saintly. Although I understand St. Nicholas was pretty nice to the poor people and all those who need it. But he's been decanonized, hasn't he?
He has been a bit, that's for sure.
Which is so sad.
Mm-hmm. And, when he was a guy who was basically famous for generosity, helping others and doing good deeds, and if the gift giving came from the solstice celebration of giving of your food and the things that you had a lot of, and not holding on to everything because you thought that it was Armageddon, I mean, it just stands to reason that there can only be good that comes of the image of Santa Claus or St. Nicholas or Father Christmas. I mean, I do know that in certain parts of Europe that he does have an alter ego. And he comes with this black hooded figure that is, the opposite of Santa. He punishes.
Oh, the Krampus.
Yes, Krampus. He's
terrifying.
Yeah. Thank goodness we didn't have that here.
It eats them.
Mm-hmm. And I
Don't
know
cross him.
one of my cousins in Switzerland was acting up on the day that St. Nicholas arrived in their classroom, and the Krampus took him out in the hall and gave him a good smack on the behind. He thought he was horrifying. Because they would put a black cloak over his head. He's like a black hooded figure who's like 7 feet tall.
Well, they do have Krampus balls now.
Do they?
Yeah, they have Krampus celebrations in big cities in Canada for people who kind of like to explore that side of the tradition. Mm-hmm. So
Wow.
you can dress as Krampus and, little parades and things.
Did you know that the night before Christmas, there was a court case in the United States to establish who had actually written it, and that, in fact, Clement Clark Moore did not write it. Yeah, so it was the descendants of Henry Livingston Jr. Yeah, so this lady, Mary Van Dusen, she claimed that her great-great-great-great-great-grandfather, Henry Livingston Jr., a poet and farmer from Poughkeepsie, New York, is the true author of the iconic Christmas story, The Night Before Christmas. Yeah.
That was one of the first poems I ever memorized.
Yeah, and I always redo the poem to suit my family and things that are going on in our lives.
Yes.
So every year it has a different kind of a twist to it.
Mm-hmm. Do we have time for a short poem?
We do have time for a short poem. I would love to have a short poem.
Okay, now you know the author Robert Service. He hasn't been challenged by anyone else. But he was a bit of a tree hugger, and I've read a few of his lesser known poems that shows that. And he has a poem called My Piney Wood. I have a tiny piney wood. My trees are only 50. Yet give me shade and solitude, for they are thick and thrifty. And every day to me they fling, with a largesse undenying, fat cones to make my kettle sing and keep my pan a-frying. Go buy yourself a piney wood if you have gold for spending, where you can dream in mellow mood, with peace and joy unending, where you can cheerfully retreat beyond all churchly chiding, and make yourself a temple sweet of rapturous abiding. Oh, silence has a secret voice that claims the soul for portal, and those who hear it may rejoice, since they are more than mortal. So, sitting in my piney wood, when soft the owl is winging, as still as druid stone I brood, for hark, the stars are singing.
Oh, that's such a nice poem. Where did you find that?
My father had a book of Robert Service poetry, and another poem or poems that he encouraged me to memorize, because he did that type of thing, was the cremation of Sam McGee, the shooting of Dan McGrew, and I really liked Piney Wood, and there's another few that really sing to the nature aspect of, in fact, it's called Nature Man, and he talks about nature being the only church he needs.
Oh, that's so nice. What a nice sentiment. And a beautiful poem for this time of the year.
I thought so.
Well, Laurie, we're running out of time, and as usual, we could go on for another 2 hours of the show on all the different things that happen at this time of year. But let's bring it to a close by just saying that this holiday season is a holiday season that has been happening since the dawn of humankind, when people needed to celebrate the fact that just after the solstice, they could feel the returning of the sun, and that the days got a little bit longer each day, and that the warmth was coming back to the sun, and the sun was climbing higher in the sky, and it was a time to really celebrate.
I'm looking forward to it.
A season of giving and rejoicing and being nicer to your fellow humans. There's nothing wrong with that, is there?
Nothing wrong with that, indeed.
All right. Well, thanks a lot for joining us today, Laurie. We appreciate your folklore and your expertise on all of these holidays that, are older than we think. How's that?
Oh, I just love talking to you, Brenda. So thanks a lot for asking me.
Well, that's it for Freshwaves this week. We hope you've enjoyed the show. I'd like to take this opportunity to wish everyone a happy, happy solstice. May the light and love of this holiday season greet you every day throughout the coming year. And may your homes be filled with love and peace. Happy solstice, everyone.